just 28 during the span period of 2008 and 9. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and please give round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Now I'm hand-overing the mic to the moderator of this session, and I request you, sir, to please announce the speaker of this session.
Thank you. It's way past good morning, closer to noon, right? We'll still do the customary thing. Good morning, everyone. I hope you will have a great day today and get to learn a lot and also maybe share a lot with us, because not everybody has equal amount of similar knowledge. With this, I would like to invite my esteemed panelists. I've been always so honored and grateful. I think God's always been kind, touch wood, thank you, that I have such amazing people on my panel that sometimes I get nervous. Why shouldn't I accept that? Yeah? So we have a topic which is challenges and expectations in multimodal logistics parks. Can get a bit controversial. Yeah? Don't take videos and put it on social media. Yeah? Hear us, hear our views. If you have anything better to add and comment, please share that. And let me invite the lady first. Yeah? We're chivalrous people, right? Poroma Munshi Rebello, President BD Pristine Logistics. Poroma is a seasoned professional with over 30 years of experience in ocean, shipping ports, and multimodal logistics. She held key leadership roles at APL, American President Lines, overseeing operations in Dubai and India, including major ports as well as managing numerous ICDs and CFSs across North and Central India. Currently as President BD for Pristine Logistics and Infra Projects, she contributes to the company's growth as one of the leading private ICD, CFS and rail operators in India. She has served on various committees of the Ministry of Shipping and is actively involved in industry associations such as ASSOCHAM, Vista, ACTO and CILT, garnering several prestigious awards for her achievements. Poroma, thank you so much for accommodating this request and being part of this panel. Big round of applause. Thank you. And now I'm going to go alphabetically. Yeah? So let's have Mr. Dushyant Arya, promoter of PalletPerDay, join us. Dushyant had also been previously the head of Indo-Arya Logistics. He's a Delhi-based entrepreneur with decades of experience in the industry. He graduated from DU and furthered his knowledge through supply chain management program at IIM Ahmedabad. With a keen eye for innovative solutions, Dushyant introduced pioneering initiatives like parcel services, centralized fund flow systems, and retail packaging. Under his leadership, Indo-Arya expanded internationally and launched PalletPerDay, India's premier online logistics portal, with a focus on revenue generation and strategic planning. He has driven remarkable success in both business and community endeavors, including serving as the president of the Rotary Club of Delhi Imperial. Dushyant, what a pleasure, what an honor. Thank you so much. I see our fellow panelist Girish has not yet reached the venue, so we will request Madu to join us on the stage. Well, I think Madu is as known a face as the TAPA, as the PhD chamber logo, right? Madu is, whenever he's in India, he ensures that he gives his time and invests his time for TAPA and for himself with the PhD Chamber of Commerce. And Madu and me go long back, I think 1999, when Madu was very young and so was I. And I recollect Madu had a fondness for linguistics. So he learned Japanese, and he got picked up by Excel Japan. And he spent, 8 years in Japan? Yeah, amongst the very few Indians who speak Japanese very fluently and are in that difficult market with the kintetsu and the kiretsu and all these business houses with a certain reputation, right, for perfection. And after that, Madu has been in the Asia Pacific region for long, and very recently, I believe, 2 years now that you've joined TAPA? 3 years. 3 years. So TAPA is Transported Asset Protection Association. I have been associated with TAPA for maybe since 2005. And Madu joined, I think, about 3 years ago. He was also aware about the, sir, if you don't mind. Excuse me, sir. Bring the mic, sir. Thank you. Okay, so it's been a very, very long time that I've known TAPA. The standards of TAPA are beyond imagination. Though, and for people who have used TAPA standards in India, especially, they would realize that warehousing is a quality game, not a quantity game, right? But I will allow Madu to speak about TAPA, later in the day. Thank you, Madu, for being part of this panel. A warm round of applause, please. And as you can see, Girish has already joined us. Girish, congratulations, first of all. I could not meet you since the time you got promoted as the CEO of NICDC. Ladies and gentlemen, a young CEO of NICDC, I think, deserves a big round of applause. Right? So Girish is a Bachelor of Engineering from SDM College of Engineering and Technology and did his MBA from IIT Roorkee. A remarkable highlight of his tenure at NEC is his instrumental involvement in the initiation and effective management of LDB, Logistics Data Bank, and that is how we met. And incidentally, I think the first time Poroma met Girish was also on a similar panel. Yeah? Yes, ULIP. So ULIP is another important feather in his cap. What I see in Girish is that, undying urge to actually make data available, data possible, and courtesy all that data analysis business enabled and business better. So a big round of applause for Girish. Thank you for joining us. And last but not the least, I don't know why it sounds very cliched always, last but not the least. So I think let's change that. So let me welcome Tarun Verma. Tarun Verma is the Regional Additive Contract Manager for Shell. When we say regional, it is not India region, it is global. India में region को समझते south, north, east, west. So that's not the case. So he's basically the global contract manager for Shell. And how often do you see someone representing Shell in a conference, and that too with someone who's worked for what? How many years now, Tarun, with Shell? 20? 20 years. 20 years. So he's seen a lot of ups and downs within the logistics landscape, and today we are going to access that knowledge on this platform. He was kind enough to join us on this platform, though he is scheduled to be on the next platform, right, which is the technical session 2. But I requested him that since the topic is close to his heart, and I know he's done a few things that are so relevant for this particular topic that I could not stop myself but ask him to join us. So thank you so much, Tarun. A big round of applause, please, for Tarun. Well, when you say challenges and expectations, sometimes you tend to get a little confused that what can you expect when it is already designed or maybe in stages of implementation. You already have the National Logistics Policy, you have MMLP parks coming up in every possible, sensible, reasonable nook and corner of the country. And now at this stage, what can you possibly do? You can speak about challenges a lot, I presume. But what can you do about expectations? So when your blueprint is ready, you can maybe make a few changes. But when you move from blueprint to physical assets, there's very little left. At least that's what we humans would believe, right? Or like to believe. That ab to kuch nahi hone wala, ab to ban gaya. Itne crore lag gaye na, so many lakhs of crores. But let me tell you this. The kind of infrastructure we've had in the past and we've now building, there's a lot that can be done. Those changes can happen, those changes will happen. So I would like to ask Dushyant, I will start from Dushyant. How future logistics parks can be designed or shall be designed in keeping in mind automation in material handling?
See, I think when we say multimodal logistics parks or logistics parks, it has to cater to more than one mode of transport seamlessly. Currently, or in the past, whatever mega infrastructures have been put in place they have been a box on a piece of land to create a specific ROI. So now, after we have set up the infrastructure in place, we need certain logistics park which are futuristic also. So when we meet automation players like Adverb, Daifuku, when they come and visit the building, they say this building is not compatible with the automation that we would like to do. Now, with the advent of ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, we see a lot of automatic robotic warehouses running in the country. The pandemic has also accelerated the growth of the automated warehouses. So now future multimodal or logistics parks have to be designed keeping in mind the automation that has to happen in those parks. So there is a golden ratio for all the logistics parks that they have. But now I think a warehouse has to be wrapped around that automation rather than the automation happening in the warehouse. So this is my take on the question.
So before I can move on to someone else, I think I'll do a continuation of the question. So you spoke about the golden ratio, right? If it's not a secret, what is it? And when we talk about sustainability, and sustainability can't be far away, right, from parks, because you're building for the future, and you can't afford to not accommodate sustainability there, right? So whether it is solar, a combination of electric and hydrogen, maybe ethanol, right? Also, given the fact that, see, I work at RSA Global, we have our head office at Udyog Vihar, and every day I think to myself, and I talk to myself, and sometimes I talk to the driver out of frustration. See, kya banaya? You have offices everywhere, there's no parking. You have one truck in one lane, traffic comes to a halt. You have cars and bikes parked on the street, not designed properly. Now, I keep mulling over this every day. Can't afford to have that kind of a situation, right? With the future.
Not at all.
We've all learned our lessons, right? So, why shouldn't a logistics park have ample space for the trucks with the amenities, whether be it an EV truck to charge that with that infrastructure? And how can a logistics park not only be self-sufficient when it comes to sustainability, but also be able to maybe earn some revenue out of it?
See, with the advancement of solar panels and all that, earlier a solar panel had to be cladded on top of the building. So that led to a lot of leakages inside the building because of the movement of panels, and the building were different. But now I think with the advent of tiles and all that, solar panel will be contributing a lot of energy to the warehouse. But unfortunately, the warehouses are located in such places that the dust is very, very high, and dust is the major killer for a solar panel. And to remove the dust, somebody has to go up to the roof and take care of the dust. That also causes a lot of damage to the roof and ultimately leads to leakages in the warehouse. So that we have still to be able to crack that how can a solar panel be placed on the roof and still produce energy. So there is a simple solution for that. Instead of using it on the roof, use it on the truck parking. So truck parking also gives you shade and also produces energy, so that when the trucks are parked, they are also, in future, they will be electric trucks. So they can also directly charge from those parkings. And you have ample area in front of the warehouse, which can be used for a solar parking shed. And that energy can be plugged into the warehouse to energize the warehouse. When the solar panel produces energy, we don't require it because warehouses are already 6% transparent. In the night we need to place battery banks. So again, battery banks are very, very costly, and they also lead to a lot of energy losses. So that that technology has yet to come, that what can be done with that. But we see airports of Cochin that are running on solar energy totally. So that means that investment that we do in 7 years, that will come back. So I think most of the new multimodal logistics park have to be completely solar powered. For that, if government is giving any subsidy or any support, it will be much appreciated. Otherwise, enterprise has to look into it. Now, in a situation, we are a little confused whether to go for electric car or wait for a hydrogen cell truck. Electric trucks are very costly and less efficient. So we are in a cusp of a transition where we have to wait and see what kind of infrastructure to be put in place. So I think it's a wait and watch, but compatibility and preparedness have to be there.
No, I think I agree. Hello. I think I agree. A wait and watch, along with maybe make the right recommendations at the right time. Wait and watch, yes, definitely. But if we don't reach out to the right stakeholders, then that wait and watch, and then later, you being in my car and mulling about Udyog Vihar having problems, that's going to happen, right? So
Then you watch and wait.
I guess I may not be in a position to do that, right? I would rather wait and watch and parallelly reach out to the right stakeholders. Yes, Tarun.
I was just trying to hold myself at a very valid point. I think we just need to remind ourselves when it comes to logistics parks and the logistics setup in India. I think way back when we all started handling the depots of the world, right? The CFAs of the world. I think we then have realized that what is my roti, kapda and makan when it comes to logistics. Given that fact that we have turned around like 25 years now we are talking about this logistics park per se, but having said that, we are still conservative in our approach. Reason being, 15 years back, when I used to travel to Singapore, or Indonesia for that matter, or Europe for that matter, I would see that container trucks or curtain trucks are predominantly using elsewhere, right? We are having a warehouse at the 4th floor. The parking of the trucks are happening on the 5th floor. I would say, gosh, where is this world, right? Why can't we do it in India, right? Come back to India after 20 years, we still are struggling to have this roti, kapda, makan for this, new setups. And we are still thinking very conservative, I can say that. I think we need to beat all the boundaries, because whatever we're going to set up now, going to fetch us the input for the next 20 years. So be mindful for that and start thinking appropriately, unimaginably, which can be possible in India.
No, I think that's a brilliant input, Tarun. In fact, I remember maybe 21 odd years back, again, Singapore, classic example. You have 5 levels of warehouses, 5 floors. And everything is seamless, no pendencies, no challenges. ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे you're walking into an office, not a warehouse. And here you walk into a warehouse, it is usually chaos, right? Because there's so much of orders, there's stuff everywhere. So yeah, going vertical also, in terms of the design, I think better do it now than fall flat on your face 20 years later saying, kya banaya tha, right? So I would like to move on to Poroma. Poroma, we all know that the NLP has been announced, right? The National Logistics Policy. So should government develop multimodal logistics parks where private ICDs already exist? Yeah, I mean it's an infra that's available, right? And maybe expand that, whichever way, vertical, horizontal, because you have something that's readily available, and it has not reached full throughput capacity any which ways, right? So you have so many ICDs, some at half capacity, some not at all, occupied, maybe few boxes here and there, just doesn't make sense. So what's your view on that?
Thank you. That's a very valid question, APR. So I don't know, and if anybody else does, it would be good to know. Was the National Logistics Policy developed keeping in mind the existing infra in India, whether government or private? Because when you look at the country as a whole, there has to be an existing blueprint of what is available where and what is not. And the National Logistics Policy is an excellent document, but if it fails to utilize the existing private infrastructure available, I think it's a gross waste of the national resources, exactly. I mean, people have invested in it. there is an existing ecosystem around it. Why not make use of what is already there? Now, I don't think that has really been taken into account. And if it has, then I would be happy to be corrected. Also, the fact that the NHLML is coming up with, I think, 30-odd multimodal logistics parks, Jeffrey? 35 multimodal logistics parks, some of them in areas where there are existing inland container depots. So what exactly is a massive multimodal logistics park going to do differently from an existing ICD, which may be smaller in size? Multimodalism basically is at least 2 modes of transport. And I believe that any inland container depot today actually does have 2 modes of transport, which is rail and road. What are the other modes of transport which are conceivably available? One is air, and the other one is inland waterways. So, or coastal movement. Are there any MMLPs coming up which facilitate 4 modes of transport? Currently not. Inland waterways is a whole different topic and can have a whole day's discussion around it. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. We haven't done much with it. But coming back to your question, and already there are designated red zone, blue zone, and green zones for any new infrastructure of a bonded area coming up. So if government-owned MMLPs come up in areas where there already exists capacity which is not used optimally, then how will the whole ecosystem work? Basically, cargo will then be scattered, and that is probably the worst thing which can happen to any kind of capex-intensive investment. When volumes get scattered, when infrastructure, ecosystems get scattered, you need to consolidate. And consolidate would also include what Tarun says, just because we have a lot of land, it doesn't mean that we keep expanding horizontally. So my request and would be that if everybody, whether a private investor or the government, would look at the existing infrastructure and see if it's possible to partner, to augment, to develop what is already there, and then move on to an area where there is nothing. That would be more helpful. Thank you.
Very, very, very valid points, Poroma.
If I can just add on to...
Sure, Girish.
See, currently, as a part of our engagement with Logistics Data Bank project, we are covering all the 440 CFS ICDs in India. Now, one of the main challenges what we see in terms of measuring the dwell time of the nation as a whole is most of the people don't have the warehouse facilities. And rather, anyway, currently they are utilizing these facilities as their warehouses. But at the same time, apparently they are supposed to pay a demurrage charge in case if there is a delay by 3 days. But they don't end up because that's the business model for the inland container depots. The same challenge happens across all the container freight stations in India. The government came up with a policy of DPD containers. DPD containers are apparently those containers which would directly move from the port to the respective factory premises, and custom clearances would happen that would reduce the overall time. But when we do the analysis, even the DPD containers, they go to the nearest CFS, they are stocked there, out there, and the model remains the same. So, in a way, one of the main reasons or probable reasons why one would not be wanting to declare their unused space as a warehouse is the zoning and the floor space index requirements, what the government has set in terms of what the warehouse should have. So, in case if that can be facilitated, what is already happening will happen, but in a more structured way.
You're absolutely right, Girish, and I think your reference is primarily to Chennai, where the DPD containers from the port actually come into CFSs and then are held there. Whereas the concept of direct port delivery is completely different. And in JNPT, Mundra, etc., that works, where there is a green channel for DPD clearance and DPD delivery. But why doesn't it gain more traction? It's because when a container is cleared at the port, the shipping line, as far as the shipping line is concerned, that's where the delivery ends. So they give a free time to the consignee of 14 days for getting their empty container gated in at the point when they gave delivery. So the consignee has to rail it out up country, take it to an ICD or any rail siding, take the container to his factory, de-stuff it and return it back to the port within 14 days. That's a challenge. That is why DPD for really long hauls is not so feasible unless there is an understanding that the consignee will be allowed some more time that is conceivably or even, practically possible for the empty container to be returned to the port. Now, there are exceptions made. Let's say that particular shipping line requires empty containers, let's say in ABCD location in the NCR or Punjab. Then he may say that kindly drop it, empty drop off there. But that's few and far between. The norm is back to port.
Correct.
So that's a challenge.
No. Very valid points coming from all of you. If you actually look at the current challenge, whether be it DPD not really working in certain cases, in certain ports it is seamlessly working, but the 14-day free period is definitely a challenge. If you actually look at it, maybe it could be a Pareto, it could be 80-20. 80% it doesn't work, 20% it works, right? Back to port, I think that again could be more than a Pareto, because that's what you want to ensure that the rotation happens in on time, and the asset is sweating and doing what it's supposed to do, right? Rather than sitting at an ICD in NCR or Dadri or Tuglakabad or whatever, right? So I'd like to ask Madu. Madu, given the fact that you represent TAPA, also the fact that you've been in the freight forwarding industry for over two and a half decades, while MMLP will provide immense benefits, we all know that, because I think the ability to deep dive and really look at those benefits is minimalistic. We actually get carried away by the facade. Okay, MMLP is the next big thing, right? We know we want it. How do we want it? We've, I think, discussed in the first chapter. Vertical more than horizontal, making use of CFSs, as a collaborative effort towards MMLP rather than just keep building buildings, right? So while there are so many touch points and multiple handling and skilled workforce requirement, etc., what in your opinion is not only an expectation and a challenge but also maybe a solution?
Good day, everyone. Thanks, APR, for that. So I was just trying to listen to all the panelists here. I hope you are all able to understand the complexity of the MMLP. While MMLP is the way to go for a nation of this size, with this much of potential what we have, while it's good to have vertical warehouses like we see in Singapore and Hong Kong, that's primarily because of land scarce, and even in Japan, we have lots of vertical warehouses very well organized. The MMLP plays a bigger role here because of, one, the land that we have, two, the number of ports that we have, three, when our country wants to become the global economy, manufacturing hub, where logistics plays a very, very crucial role. Now, in all these places, what we see, we heard a few words. I'm picking up a few words of the panelists here. We heard the cargo is scattered because of the current situation, which is not ideal, right? We also heard that the DPDs are not really effective. So what is happening is that when the DPD goes to CFS and sits there for a while, for whatever reasons, current model, in all the places, what is exactly happening is the cargo inside, which is the asset, which is the real asset, that's got a value. The building and the trucks and the containers are all transactional, keep moving. But the real asset for the economy, which derives the benefit, is the cargo of the manufacturer. So as logistics service providers, the LSPs are only custodians of their customers' asset, right? So what is it that we are doing towards that asset protection, that cargo protection? Because of the current models that we have, either inside the warehouse or the cargo reaching the warehouse or the cargo being transported, do we have a mechanism, a process, a standard, a practice to ensure that this asset of the manufacturer, of the brand, is secured? I'm not talking about safety, I'm talking about security of that asset. The reason is, if you do not plug holes, which is already there, on the gaps that is happening in the secured supply chain, when it comes from the vessel onto the truck and then to the warehouse and again for distribution. Rightly said, there are so many touch points. Various touch points means various opportunities for pilferage, for deliberately colluding with the syndicates, counterfeits, and illicits. If you just look at the statistics, the amount of cargo loss in the supply chain, purely because of not having standardized processes in terms of secured supply chain, the loss that is currently available from the data, you can talk to any manufacturer, you can talk to any distributor, is unbelievable. The sad part is that they all say that we have an insurance so we can cover it, but that's not the solution. Insurance also is not going to be easy, right?
Isn't it similar to the fact that we have land, so let's not go vertical?
Yeah, exactly. Very true, very true. So, for the question, what we need to do, while these are all very valuable points, which we need to consider as in the MMLP when we move forward, for the existing, we also got a very valid point. Why don't we look into the existing infrastructure and see what can be done on that? That is very important. But on the existing infrastructure and existing business model, please also look into how secured is your cargo, right? So that is the most important point. If that is not taken care, you may have the best of the infrastructure, you may have the best of the operations, but if your asset, if your cargo is being siphoned off, being lost in the supply chain, then all the efforts that we put in is not going to really help us, because at the end of the day, why we are doing everything possible is to ensure that the asset is secured and delivered to the customer the way it has to be delivered and reached. Now, that is the point. That's where TAPA comes in, right? TAPA comes in to address this gap, close the gap with solutions. As API rightly asked, the solution is look into the standards and practices. And these are globalized standards. There are lots of organizations in India who are adopting it, but still we have not even touched 1% of the surface, to be very honest, right? So it's a huge area which we all need to open up, because when it comes to this asset security, I think we all have a role to play. So my answer to that will be, the solution, while we have for the various problems, could be on the infrastructural side, on the government side, or regulatory side. Individually, we all have an opportunity to fix by ourselves on the asset security side. That's the step we should take also, together with others. Yeah.
Thanks, Madu, for that. I think if I have to actually look at the negative side of who we are as a race within this country. Positives, we all know about it. Man ki baat karte rehte hain and all of that, right? We know that we are an amazing race, right? Let's focus on the half glass empty, because that is where the gaps need to be sorted, right? So we tend to be a category of people who like taking things for granted. You have land, build as much as you want. Keep building horizontal. Problem of plenty, right? You have warehouses, you have customers willing to take those warehouses as services, you have ICDs, CFSs, you have the network. Why bother about quality? I was talking to somebody a couple of days back and he said, I've been with this company for 20 years and we've grown from a 20 crore company to a 5,000 crore company. And he mentioned in reference to a warehouse being called a godown. And a very respected supply chain leader. And we asked him, I said, why are you calling it a godown? He said, because it is a godown. It is not a warehouse. It's a dump yard. So the point is that we have dump yards. We have CWC, which is our neighbor here, to PhD Chamber of Commerce. And we know the kind of infrastructure that we have of Central Warehousing Corporation in the country. I doubt if I asked Tarun, would he want to use any of their warehouses, he would prefer not to answer. So the point is that we take things for granted. We don't care about 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what does the country need? And that is the reason why we are in an appalling situation as far as logistics infra is concerned. We talk about logistics cost being way too high, but then we just talk about it. We continue to yap about it unless and until the government does something about it, right? So having said that, I think both Madu and Tarun have had considerable experience in the Asia-Pacific region. And I recollect when Tarun and me were talking some time back, that he implemented something in Indonesia, which is very similar to what we call as a multimodal logistics park here. And not only that, the fact that I've known him for years, he has been an advocate of the word multimodal logistics even before the infrastructure existed, even before the government was willing to hear us out, because the amount of money you spend on logistics is humongous. And the safety issues or safety hazards are also phenomenal. And I believe the likes of Shell actually brought in the zero tolerance culture to safety or to fatalities rather, not safety. They brought in this safety culture and they paid through their nose to actually get this culture emulated across 3PL partners. And I've been a part of that, and I have immense respect for companies like Shell who've actually invested in these initiatives. So Tarun, what lessons can we learn as a nation from a country like Indonesia? They're economically not as good as us, but I believe they have multimodal logistics parks much before we even planned for it.
Yeah, let me share some perspectives. I think then we can try and recollect how the things are shaping up. So my hands-on with multimodal goes back to 2005, 2006, when people were very reluctant. People were not been aware about how this multimodal things were going to work, rails and trucks. So I think all said and done, I still remember when we all had one transporter come multimodal called SKT way back, and we burnt our fingers, hands, mouth, everything with them over the years because, you know, moving a high cargo like us in drums and liquids and dangerous goods, it's too difficult to handle, and they were not prepared for that. The whole infrastructure ecosystem was not ready to handle end-to-end multimodal, and we burned it, right? So there was no cost advantage then, but the only advantage then was in terms of possible lead times or maybe handling the trucks and so on and so forth, right? Having said that, we thought we lost the hope because we thought this is not going to exist. Then maybe after 10 years when I was in a regional role and working for a country like Indonesia. Now, just to give you another perspective, when it comes to oil and gas and industry in India, Shell goes a long way, so as Indonesia. So India and Indonesia both were on the growth trajectory at that point of time, say 10 years back. And both were aspiring to be the market leaders in their respective countries. And one of the challenges we have in both the markets was cost to serve, right? How do you bring down cost to serve? And that was a time also, there was an evolution of e-commerce coming in, which eventually keeps us a pressure in terms of our delivery promises. Because 10 years back, we had a delivery promise of 6 days, 7 days to a customer. But now if you ask me about maybe 2 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours maximum. That's the transformation happening. So how do we balance it out, right? So Indonesia was a market wherein we were aspiring to get more volume share because of the opportunity we have. And that's where we get into a rail model, a hub, a multi-modal park, which was being set up by government. So we had a few meetings with government then. And government was very happy to see that company like Shell coming forward for a collaboration and giving a much more volume and emphasis on this. So they ride on us in terms of they could be a flag bearer for such kind of things to develop. So we worked on a lane called Jakarta to Surabaya, right? Which was basically truck will take around, it's again sea water you need to take, but it will take around 5-6 days to reach, so as the trains. But the catch was, but the multimodal will give us around 20% of cost saving lever. So that was a carrot we had, okay. And then we worked with the government. We worked with a freight forwarder. We worked with a service provider who was indulging into this kind of a channel. And eventually, if you ask me now, as of today, we have moved around 100% of volume to this lane on multimodal. So that has been a story of success. Not only is giving us 4 to 5 CPLs of saving over in a year, but eventually it's turned out to be more avenues been getting done. Having said that, vis-a-vis in India, by then we were only able to make en-routes for Calcutta or 1 or 2 routes. So that's where I'm saying if a country and the backup is already there on the system, ecosystem will help you to move much more faster and become a growth story. And just to tell you and close this whole thing, in Indonesia, Shell is a market leader with 22%. They are beating NOCs over there. They are beating the IOCs and BPCLs of the world in Indonesia. So that is been a growth story and supporting story to help and grow in the country.
Fantastic. I think so much to learn. And I always thought that except nasi goreng, there's nothing much that Indonesia has to offer. But I guess, this is where the knowledge transfer is happening, right? Girish, I have 2 questions to you. And you may choose to answer both or one, depending on your comfort level. But I guess one is very easy because that's your piece. any which ways with its regards to ULIP. So how single window portals can help bridge the gap and bring stakeholders onto a single platform? Yeah, that's one, because it's essential to market ULIP. I keep telling this. The last conversation that we had, I said the feedback that I've got from the industry, especially the manufacturing side, while the government and ULIP would like to boast about good numbers, but are they good enough? So when you have like more than 1 million manufacturing units or manufacturers, do you have them all on ULIP? The answer is no. So in fact, even the last time when I was talking to Surendra Rivarji, I made a mention of this. Maybe I did not get the response that I wanted. But the point is, you build something great and it is heard, but it is not practiced or imbibed unless and until it is marketed well, you know. So unless you show a Shah Rukh Khan or a Katrina Kaif with a particular product, it is not going to sell in the masses as much. And here we are talking about the B2B masses. So hence it needs to be spoken of multiple times. So one is the question of, how do you bridge that gap and bring stakeholders onto that platform? And second, grading of warehouses, right? I believe Madu is right here. Madu, I know this for a fact that in our entire nation, we do not have a single association or certifying agency that certifies holistically a warehouse infrastructure, right? You have BISs, you have, maybe in isolation you have various other certification bodies, the TUVs, etc., etc. You have the ICRAs and the CARES, but they are not addressing the issue of infrastructure ratings. Yeah. So this is my second question to you. What's your view on that?
So, okay, let me answer with the ULIP thing first. When we designed ULIP, it was an outside-in approach. There were multiple stakeholder consultations. We took their feedbacks, and that's how this became operational over a period of 2 years. In the past 1 year, we have had more than 56 stakeholder associations. Now still, if certain sections might not have visibility, we'll probably increase it eventually. And this we have had across pan-India, be it the freight forward associations, the shipping line associations, the manufacturing associations, the Japanese origin companies and all. So one aspect of ULIP, what we are covering, which will eventually facilitate the multimodal logistics parks is, we are integrated with 36 systems of India. When I say we are integrated with the aviation side of it, so all the systems belonging to aviation, these can be your air cargo, ACMES, air cargo community system, I-class, there are various systems in for the air cargo community solutions. Then coming to the coastal container movement, we have all the terminal operating systems. There are 28 container handling systems in India. We are integrated with all of them. So eventually when it comes to handling a multimodal transportation, so when we started with, I'll say 10 to 12 years back, or rather 14 years back, it was more of like my first mile connectivity is a challenge, my last mile connectivity is a challenge, but my long haul connectivity is more or less taken care of. At least I have some kind of engagement at this point of time. But eventually with this kind of integration which is available and close to 1900 fields and 115 APIs is what we have developed currently. Any user can plan his consignment wherein he can choose the route optimization. Just for an example, that do I want, which is the fastest route I can take? The first mile might be air, or it might be road, or it might be the coastal container. Which is the cheapest movement I can plan. With respect to in case if there are any credits being available, what is the least carbon footprint which can be done for every movement of mine from point A to point B. So that is the kind of empowerment the government is actually trying to provide to the overall trade. We have launched the beta version of Track Your Transport application with the same set of features which is available right now. So that empowers the users to actually look into holistically any kind of transportation in India. We are not leaving any single system unattended at this point of time, have access to all the relevant fields, not just from a movement perspective, but also from a compliance or regulatory perspective as well. Say, e-way bill is also integrated, so that gives a lot of empowerment to the user with respect to when it is. Okay. So e-way bill is also integrated. That was the latest integration. It took us a couple of years. Vahan Sarthi, say for example, a company has 1,000 drivers and 1,000 trucks coming to their factories or warehouses at that point of time. You don't know the status of these vehicles or the drivers at that, for that matter. What kind of, through the e-challan system, you will get to know the profile of a driver, how many accidents it has been, what is the status of the vehicles as a whole. Okay, and with a single integration, it throws you your red, green, amber kind of things. So any manufacturing entity, anyone today is empowered to take that decision in the shortest period of time with respect to what kind of drivers I would require, what kind of vehicles I would require. We have seen examples of vehicles getting confiscated in middle of the journey. There is a huge loss to most everyone, the stakeholders involved. We are looking into how to reduce this EPOD. With EPOD coming in, how much the payment cycle as a whole can be reduced. So that's where utilizing this entire digital intervention, we have created this single platform so that everyone in the ecosystem can latch onto it, avail the benefits, reduce the time and bring in the efficiencies. So that was the first thing which I tried to keep brief because I can go on and on about my project.
Thanks. On the grading of warehouses.
Yeah.
How is ULIP, LDB, and the works? Is there any focus on that?
Grading of warehouses, it is a little bit challenging. I'll tell you why. Because we can do a performance benchmarking. Okay, that is one thing which we can do with respect to what is the existing time taken, be it at the yards, be it at the gate in, gate out. We have the customs fields, so we know that how custom clearances happens, out of charge, all the different aspects. But unlike in IT, you have a set of parameters, right? You do an STQC, you do any kind of audit. So you know what are the kind of prerequisites which have to be there. Then it is easier to give a rating. And unless there is no central agency, nodal authority, which does that, it would be very much biased in terms of everyone can have their grade A architecture for their warehouses. So that is a more bigger problem than eventually it will become. So there is a need for the relevant ministries also to have a look into it. As a solution, when we try to sell warehouse management solutions, even from the likes of ERPs, there are multiple blue yonders. There are various global players as well as local players who now have effective warehouse solutions. But nobody is looking into, as you mentioned, what is the quality of these warehouses. In case if I want to avail, because most of the time since they are underutilized or not that optimally utilized, there is a huge opportunity for marketplace. In case if they publish it, that this is the space which I am having and I can provide you this space at this price, there will be a lot of people, even in transit, especially the cold chain warehouses and all, wherein there is a huge shortage at this point of time. Lot of scope, but definitely it would take a little bit more of effort from both the sides, from the policy making side as well as the kind of technology adoption.
Like I said earlier, we take things for granted. We have plenty of land, keep building. We don't learn from our neighbors, like what Tarun shared on the Indonesia story, that they are now 100% on multimodal. We have Madu right here, and he represents TAPA, which is a global organization which certifies warehouses very intricately, and I've been a part of it, so I know how detailed that is. But before I can ask Madhu to share with all of you all, maybe not on the platform right now, not on the panel right now, but since we are here for the day, you can interact with Madhu and understand what is TAPA all about. But Dushyant, what's your view on what Girish just said? And after that, I have one question
Before that, I'll just take a last
Poroma.
minute.
Yeah.
I'll end with ULIP. So ULIP was credited. India's LPI ranking improved this time to 38.
Yes, it did.
So there was a 2.5-page article, which is in their report, which is categorically mentioning how Logistics Data Bank and ULIP have been facilitating for the same.
That's absolutely fantastic. Let's have a huge round of applause. It has been years and years of painstaking effort. In fact, even the NLP took what, 9 years? We took 9 years. I mean, I was a part of it, a small part. Dushyant.
I just want you to imagine the cargo flowing into the country in a 20 footer palletized. It reaches the port, palletized. It reaches the customer. It gets depalletized. it gets transferred into an Indian standard 32-foot truck. Then it is handled by manual people which put the drum on a tire and unload it into the warehouse. In the godown, sorry. Then when the loading happens, or on an audit day, they wear safety shoe, they wear a hat, they put a jacket, and they load it on the tire onto the truck. And they try to stuff that truck as much as possible without caring about the loading norms, about the standard heights, about the over height, or not overloading is not stopped. But the container, the drum, is not able to take load of more than 2 drums on it. So they load 32-footer है, 4 तो load करो ना इसमें, 5 तो load करो. Then it reaches the distributor. Distributor does not have place to offload a 32-footer. It gets transferred to a chota hathi on a tire. Then it goes to the distributor, where on a phatta it gets unloaded on the rate wala godown. So now in this whole process, how will standardization help us? Or even if we do ULIP, even if we do connectivity, how will a standard application translate into a standard operation?
So right now, we have been working with the coal association.
Sorry if I took you on the wrong.
No. Perfectly fine. I'm happy I'm getting to market more about ULIP. So this is exactly one of the reasons, overloading and all, pilferages, most of the
There is
real
no
life.
pilferage happened, but this is the standard, Indian standard 32-foot truck,
Yes.
which is not present anywhere in the world.
So apparently with the weighbridge integrations, okay, so there are certain existing norms according to which you have to transport, right? And that's not happening. We ourselves see while driving, most of the times we feel that koi गिर ही जाएगा, मतलब इतना overloading हो जाता है. So at that point of time, there is an integration with the RTO systems and other relevant agencies. Any kind of, after every X number of kilometers, there has to be a compulsion wherein you have a weighbridge across the toll plazas. So that gives you an alert as to with respect to the kind of vehicle which is driving, because you already have a FASTag onto it. So FASTag integration.
So that compliance is there of the,
Yes.
the vehicle. Vehicle is 14-ton capacity, 18-ton capacity, it is carrying 14 tons, but it is not competing the loading norms.
It is not standardized. So if you have a 20-foot, 40-foot TEU, FEU, where you're getting imported and export cargo,
Global standard and Indian standard
are different, absolutely. And I think that's a big topic, right? Because either you need to either you need to corner or say that, okay, 32-foot trucks are for a particular purpose, can't be used on the port, or containers, start using containers and over a period of time move out, the 32-footers or whatever. I think it's a big topic and it will affect and impact a lot of people. So I think what we will do is we will wait and watch, right? And I have one question for Poroma, because Poroma, see, I think we are human beings and hence we expect a lot. Yeah, the moment you announce something, tax आने वाला है तो income tax कम होगा क्या, corporate tax कम होगा क्या, etc., right? So we have lots of expectations. So with MMLP, I'm pretty sure everybody has lots of expectations, right? Exactly. So people have lots of expectations. Companies have lots of expectations. Now, but tell me your opinion about, are companies really ready to up their game? Are they interested? Are they in a position to actually either take those benefits, benefit from those benefits, especially given the fact that by a consolidation CFS of global standards and accessibility to airport and domestics, etc. What's your take on that?
What would a shipper or a consignee in India want, or anywhere in the world? So they should be able to get a container. Now you made a very good point, Dushyant, that this 32-foot truck, which is unique in its its own world space, we have to try and move towards containerization. So this whole, even if it's moving by truck, closed body trucks, etc., there should be a standardized ISO containerization size, what is moving in open trucks with, say, tarpaulins covering them and so on. The wastage, the pilferage, etc., that you mentioned is more relevant in that if it's a closed truck or it's a closed container, sealed, self-sealed or otherwise, the opportunities for breakage, pilferage, theft, etc., are less. So coming to expectation, what would be the expectation from an MMLP, let's say, coming back to what we are discussing? That there should be enough space for international cargo to translate into domestic and for domestic to translate into international. How does that happen? That will happen only if the bonded area and the non-bonded area are within the same premises, within the norms of custodianship of customs, whatever barriers, etc., have to be placed, they should be placed. But the transition from domestic to international, international to domestic should be very short, should be very small. And that will actually reduce the cost of logistics. If you don't have to take your cargo, which is not customs cleared, a very long distance to get it customs cleared, that transit itself is time consuming and expensive. So if there is a piece of land, large, vertical, horizontal, I don't know. But if I can move my cargo, if I'm a small shipper, I do 10 TEUs a month, if at all, and I can move my cargo into a warehouse for CFS stuffing, and then once it is stuffed into the shipping line container of my choice, it just comes out of a gate and goes into another, and it gets rail connectivity, and it becomes an EXIM container because it's customs cleared. And I get my original bill of lading, my negotiable document, which I go to the bank, and I get my money. I'm done. So this particular aspect of long transits, or even if, I'm talking about cargo which is, let's say, warehouse stuff, not required. You can pick up your shipping line container at an empty yard or at an ICD or a CFS, take it to your factory, do a self-sealing, bring it back directly into rail. Now, is it possible to have ICDs and MMLPs bang in the center of every city? No, it's not. Or very close to factories, it's not. It's not even feasible, nor should it be because of various pollution and so on. So your ability to make use of multimodalism will be very effective if your modes are relatively physically close to each other and therefore seamless. Possibly automation, any other technical developments are so much easier if the modes are together or as close to each other as possible. This is a suggestion from my side.
No, I think it's a brilliant suggestion. We all know by now that first mile plus last mile, when you look at the actual percentage, if I have to just give a hypothesis, it is anywhere between 40 to 50% of the overall multimodal cost. And that's huge. So only if you have your terminals or your CFSs closer, can you have a lower cost of logistics. So with that, since we've already taken extra time, and Ajay is already upset with me. So Madu, I'm sorry, but we will do it through the entire day. Can I open up for a question? Yeah, I think he's kind enough. One question, or there are two questions. Okay, sir.
We have a common factor, sir. I have also worked in Indonesia for 2 years. I have worked with the pulp and paper company over there. So I have a very little experience in logistics. So few things I want to suggest with the very little knowledge I have, plus a couple of questions I wanted to ask. First, ma'am, you mentioned previously that in India we deal with the problem with 14 free days. So I also used to face the same issue when I was working with April Asia, my previous company. So when we used to, sometimes because of the delay, we used to pay additional detention charges and demurrage charges. So we changed the rule. We had a deal with the consignee that we used to request for additional free days, let's say 18 free days or 21 free days. So can't we implement that in India so that we are out of that bottleneck and so that we are able to create a smooth process in that perspective. Second thing I wanted to ask, as sir was saying that when we load something, it's palletized, but when we are reaching the destination, it gets unpalletized. So we used to have a software in my previous company that we used to create a pattern. The software used to create a pattern. Whatever item that we are loading into the container or into the truck, the software will give you a pattern that we have to load the cargo in that particular fashion only. And if we exceed that fashion, the cargo will get damaged or unpalletized. So could we get that software in India so that, whatever we are shipping out, we are able to ship out in that particular manner so that the cargo reaches safely without getting damaged?
Thank you. Very good questions. Can you just introduce yourself, please?
My name is Sanchit Singh Bhatia.
Okay, and you're with?
I'm with Interact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. So it's a very valid question. Can we request for additional free time beyond 14 days? People do. Consignees do. But if you look at it from the perspective of a shipping line, for them it becomes a port-to-port movement. And there is a per diem cost associated with a container. So the sooner you turn around the container, you're basically sweating your asset. The longer free time you give to a consignee, you're basically extending your turnaround time. Your asset is not being utilized for your revenue benefit. It's being used by another party for their benefit, for storage. Sometimes consignees just use a container for storage in the ICD till they have space in their factory. That's why shipping lines are very careful. I also did mention that if they are short of containers of that or a 20 or a 40, let's say short of it, let's say in a nearby geography, they will say drop it off there. So they just want to turn around their asset faster. That said, there are certain very big customers, and I will not name them there, who beat the system in the sense shipping lines allow them, accommodate them, and that is business. I mean, anybody would do that. So, but I must also say that DPD has been successful in JNPT to a great extent. JNPT DPD is for shorter distances. They normally don't come up north. Now with the shift of cargo almost entirely to Gujarat ports, primarily Mundra and Pipavav currently, the JNPT port is catering to a very different geography. DPD is very successful there. Thank you.
Softwares do exist for the loading pattern. There are a lot of companies who are using these softwares. But my perspective was from a different point of view, that standardization is something else. We are making something which is standard into a Indian standard, non-standard thing, and then shipping it. So that causes a lot of problem. So most of the softwares which are built for 20 fitters or 40 fitters globally. But our truck shape is totally different. So cargos exist, they also have a software, and there are a lot of automotive companies who have software, there are furniture companies who have softwares to accommodate every kind of box. But if the shipper changes, then the software has to be fed with the changes in the shipper.
See, any software cannot beat a behavior. So the point he made some time back was in terms of the customer behavior, most in terms of the last mile, how they're going to be perceiving and receiving the material, right? From a primary like import, export, I think this is all doable. But when it comes to the end customer, how are you going to change the behavior? I think I remember way back in India, I think we did this pilot, and I think I'm pretty sure, but more than not 2 to 5% customers are still willing to accept the same load size or the pallet size you are intended to use the software. Unless you change the behavior, there are possible ways wherein you can incentivize them for certain orders to make them aware, and then you can have your reverse logistics to pick up the pallets. It takes additional cost, additional efforts, but by all means, you all are trying to change the behavior. And somewhere or the other, we as a company needs to initiate those things. Else, you're bound to have these tire things even after the multimodal will be in place. Yeah.
Just before we take this question, we were talking about a 32 feet truck. Forget 32 feet. We are advancing towards 40, 45, 50, and of course car carriers as well. But you talk about closed body trucks. I think 50 foot is what we are reaching at. And this is purely because of cost of goods sold. At the end of the day, domestically, you need to make that product viable to sell in that market. There's no free lunch. You just can't kill your margins. And hence, those truck types exist in India if you look at it from a cargo perspective. If you look at it outside of India, yes, you have standardization in many countries where it's just a flatbed trailer and you have a TU, FU moving. But if you really look at the dollar value, the currency value, that plays a different role. So if rupee was stronger, then the kind of savings that a Shell or anybody else would have expected was different than what it is in the current market. Because if they are in India, they need to make money, right? Sir, your question.
Thank you. And my questions to Girish, and Girish, another opportunity for you to market ULIP, I would say. I think the NLP and the ULIP couldn't have asked for a bigger Big Bang promotion than they actually got. November 2022, when the Prime Minister did that launch, you couldn't have asked for anything bigger. It also created a lot of interest in private companies to come understand the power behind ULIP. And I must compliment, it is really a very, very powerful concept. Right. We've also been working, trying to get the private sector interest in this. But really, there are players who've tried, invested, put in money, put in teams dedicated to building solutions around ULIP. But there have been challenges on the other side as well. Right. For example, latency of data has always been a challenge because ULIP is an intermediary. You take information from 36 different ministries, you say, right? So it is not real time for me as a user. There is latency in the data. Second, we might have 36 ministries, but at least of last account that I knew, the railways were sharing only 8 data fields out of FOIs. Right. So my trains, and Poroma can vouch for this, could be stuck for 4 to 5 days on a dedicated freight corridor. And still I have nothing I can do about it. Right. So really, while it's great for ministries to come on board, but really 8 data fields on a freight operating information system, right? So how do you see this going forward? Because you're at the heart of it. You're getting sandwiched between industry and the ministries. How do you really see this getting resolved?
So I'll answer your second question to begin with. See, in terms of the data fields, apparently we would like to hear from the industry. So most of the companies who have registered and who have been providing value to their customers today, they started with asking for 5 fields. Then there have been not just the private entities, but also the government agencies, like Ministry of Coal. They have been asking like, I need these and these fields from the custom system, from the railway system and all. That is where we will, it's a request response based system. That is how we will be able to retrieve those fields. Unless and until nobody tells us what is that one field which will apparently help your business. Probably there might be 1,000 fields. But what is the need at this point of time? If the industry asks for it, there is no reason why any ministry today, which is agreeing to give me 8 fields, unless and until it is not violating on any of this personal identifiable information and that kind of thing, there is no challenge in terms of how they provision the data. So in terms of voice systems, well, there are multiple fields. I'll again connect with you after this. I'm not sure why only 8 fields are being made available. It depends upon the use case. So for example, a company A comes to me today. We sign an NDA with them. They tell us their business case, what kind of fields they require and all. Maybe they are taking 8 fields, and that is where you might have had discussion. I'm just assuming. But there is another company B, which is taking 18 fields at this point of time. Coming to the second point, in case about the latency. See, ULIP system is robustly built, ensuring that there shouldn't be any latency. Not even, it's a fraction of second kind of thing, how we do a request response thing. But the systems which currently exist on NIC, it might be your DGFT system, it might be your IceGate 2.0, which is about to come. In case if there is a challenge in these systems, so ULIP is an overarching layer. It will apparently be dependent on retrieving information from these systems. So the voice of the industry was Vahan and Sarthi systems were extremely on a slower side. So there were multiple escalations which happened. We discussed with the secretary more onto that. There have been a lot of changes. So that is how it is like a continuous Kaizen. It's an improvement cycle which happens eventually. But ULIP system as a whole ensures that there is no latency. But apparently we are dependent, as you rightly mentioned, sandwiching is the word. We are into that situation. But we can, however, share this information to the relevant ministries to get it rectified. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. No, I'm so sorry. Others you can connect with Girish or whoever separately because we need to get into the next session. Ajay?
क्या मैं बोल सकता हूँ क्या कुछ?
सर, आप अलग से इनसे मिल सकते हैं. Guaranteed मैं आपकी मीटिंग करवा दूंगा. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are in Dutch privilege to benefit from the wisdom shared by our speakers for this session. I take this opportunity to express our heartfelt thanks to all the dignitaries on the dais, especially our moderator of this session. Let's take a minute to felicitate our honorable dignitaries on the dais for their outstanding achievement. For this, I would like to call upon Mr. Naveen Seth, Deputy Secretary General, PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to please kindly felicitate the honorable dignitaries on the dais. Our moderator of this session, Mr. Abhishek sir, President RSA Global. We have the speakers of the session, Mr. Madu, Executive Director, Transported Assets Protection Association Asia Pacific. Mr. Dushyant Arya sir, the Advisory Forum Member of Warehouse Logistics Show and promoter of PalletPerDay. Ms. Rebello, President BT Pristine Logistic. Mr. Tarun Verma sir, Regional Additive Contract Manager Shell. And Mr. Girish sir, CEO and Director, NICDC Logistic Data Services. Thank you so much, honorable dignitaries on the dais. I request the dignitaries to please come in front of the dais for the group photograph.
I request my team also to please join us. Kanika, Aishwarya.
Thank you so much, honorable dignitaries on the dais, for the lovely session.